Hey guys, I just watched Voodoo. Yeah. The movie opens up with a point of view shot that looks like it's being filmed on VHS. I know it's digital and not VHS, but it has that VHS feel, like a home movie. They show this woman supposedly performing voodoo and she's acting all creepy, which she actually did a really good job of acting creepy, despite everything looking as basic and kind of low budget as it did. Her acting actually outshined the low budgetness. I don't mean that in a bad way. When I say something is low budget, I'm not judging it, I'm just stating an observation. The main character is from New Orleans and she's visiting her cousin in Los Angeles, and they both are trying desperately to do a New Orleans accent and they're failing. I give them a lot of credit because it seems like no one can ever do a New Orleans accent right. My grandma's from New Orleans, I've heard this accent my whole life. I can't even mimic that accent. I actually love her accent and my cousins, especially when they say okay. That's the closest I can say it to their okay. The writing's already kind of weak because instead of just showing or demonstrating the relationship between these two characters, they have them repeatedly call each other cousin, which sounds very unnatural when they're speaking. Remember when I said in my Get Out review that all the dialogue in Get Out served a greater purpose? It all was part of a larger story and it was all important dialogue. This movie is the opposite. There's a lot of filler dialogue that really has nothing to do with the story. It's not leading up to anything. It's just there to kind of pad out the movie. The characters are low-key annoying. I mean, watching this girl go on vacation with her cousin it's so boring and they're just irritating. Or as my little sister would say, Aggie. One of the girls reminds me of Fairuza Balk and the other one reminds me of the dark-haired girl from Community. When they're smoking weed in the car, I swear they're using CGI smoke. I just thought that's the funniest thing because one of the easiest things for an actor to do is to pretend smoke. You just take a puff, you hold it in your mouth, and you blow it out. I've done this before. They go out to this bar and Ron Jeremy shows up for no reason. And it's at this point that I realize I think I'm watching the wrong movie. I was meant to be watching a movie, I think it's called Voodoo, and it had Terrence Howard in it. I clicked on this thinking this is the movie Voodoo with Terrence Howard, but it is absolutely not. At this point I'm thinking this movie is so bad because they keep having to walk up this hill because the taxi cab won't drive him up the driveway, and I'm thinking your cousin's been in LA for how long and she doesn't have a car? I understand they do have public transportation, but I also understand that it's very hard to get around LA without a car. It's not like New York where you really don't need a car, especially if you're in Manhattan, you don't need a car. Then there was this really weird ass makeout scene where the guy and the girl are kissing and he just goes straight for feeling on her crotch. And she's okay with this. But then when he goes to try to feel her up on her breast, she's like, oh no, wait a minute, don't do that. And it really made no sense to me because it was like, you were okay with him feeling all over your coochie, but not your boobs. All right. Later on, there's this really bad jump scare, and I'm ashamed of myself for saying that it really got me because it's such a stupid thing, but the way it was timed, it really got me. And also, I kind of knew that it was coming, but I didn't expect for what happened to happen so close to the foreground. Then there was a moment of some really horrible CGI at the beach that we won't discuss. At this point, I really want to stop watching this because this is so bad, but I feel like I've come too far and I just have to finish it. There's literally no reason for this movie to be found footage other than it's a way to cheaply make a movie. The movie's going along, I'm starting to get sleepy. Then I noticed that a lot of the filming that's happening really reminds me of Cops. I don't know why, but it just feels like I'm watching an episode of Cops, only without the cops. There was a particularly creepy sequence when she walks through the house with the camera, and it's creepy because it makes you feel like you're in one of those first-person video games like Five Nights at Freddy's. They got me with another jump scare, and I guess I'm just highly susceptible to jump scares. I'm not even gonna act like, oh, I'm this tough person that doesn't, jump scares don't affect me. They startle me. What can I say? When she goes downstairs to hell, it really looks like one of those scare houses from Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. Her cousin has turned into some type of version of Angela from Night of the Demons. I really like how they also included a shadow person in addition to the demons. Then as she goes further into hell, it becomes Silent Hill, and she gets attacked by not Sadako slash Samara. Then she gets shackled to the wall and gets sniffed by a couple of crawlers from the descent. At this point, I'm thinking, who the hell is holding the camera? Gollum starts whispering in the background, and the people from under the stairs start attacking her. She goes into another room, and there's this woman laying on the table giving birth, and this guy is forcibly yanking the baby out of her vagina and yanking out the umbilical cord. Then he rips the umbilical cord off the baby, wraps it around the mother's neck and begins to choke her, and another lady starts to eat the baby. Then she gets pulled into another room where more people are being tortured, and one man is having a horn stuck up his ass. Then she goes into this passageway and sees her creepy, rapey Uncle Jakey. I can't. Then she goes into another room that's brightly lit and looks like, you know, her mother's old bedroom, and her mother's there and she hugs her mother and doesn't know what's going on. The room turns red and a couple more ghouls come in the room and rip her mother's intestines out and throw her up against the wall, and then one of the goons rubs the intestines in her face and he says, and I quote, "Suck on your mother's bowels, you fucking cunt." And you wanna know what she does next? She goes into another room where there's a bunch of ghouls in one corner, and they're all holding these crucifixes that kind of look like dolls at the same, like kind of look like voodoo dolls and kind of look like crucifixes, and they turn them upside down. And the devil is sitting on his throne in the corner, and two other ghouls are undressing her, and they throw her over this table, and the devil comes up and he goes to Pound Town on her ass. Then he says something, but I couldn't make out what it was he said. I couldn't understand it. Then she gets dressed and she walks through this smoky hallway into what appears to be a modern home. And I'm guessing this is back to her cousin's home during the daytime. And she's kind of laughing in this way where she's kind of relieved, but kind of gone crazy or mad at the same time. But she feels like everything is okay until she goes in the kitchen and she sees her cousin eating her. Now, interestingly enough, this movie is actually playing in a movie theater in Orlando right now. It's at the Universal Studios 4 AMC or AMC. I always feel like the A and the AMC looks like 4, so I want to say 4 AMC. But it's the Universal Studios AMC theater, and they're actually playing this movie there. Remember when I said that it felt like a scare house at Universal Studios? Well, apparently in the trivia, most of the actors playing the various inhabitants of hell are cast members from the scare houses at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. The acting wasn't so great, but the direction was pretty good when you think about what they had to work with. This movie has nearly nothing to do with voodoo at all and should have just been called Danielle Goes to Hell. I like that title. It should just be called Danielle Goes to Hell, because that's what happened to Danielle. She went to hell. I really give this movie credit for not having one single fuck to give. They really committed to the over-the-top nature of what they were doing, and I appreciate that. If you like gore and over-the-top movies bordering on extreme horror, I think you'll really enjoy this. The first 30 minutes, it's kind of lackluster, and you're gonna want to say, what the hell is this? This is horrible. But stick with it. It's worth it at the end. Bear in mind, it still has a student film type of feel to it, but it was enjoyable to watch for me anyways. The jump scares were effective. It really felt like the closest thing in a film version to actually going to a scare house yourself, or like I said earlier, playing a game like Five Nights at Freddy's. It really, because most of it is shot in first person perspective, I think that's what makes a big difference in this film. Also, this film actually reminds me of a movie that I saw last year. It was a Turkish film called Baskin, and I think I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. Baskin actually comes from a Turkish short, kind of similar to how Lights Out was a short. There was something else that was a short and then it was turned into a long form. Siren. Anyways, the main characters are police officers and they're called to a building to investigate some type of disturbance. I love the way they introduced the police officers. They're sitting at dinner at a little restaurant and betting on soccer and exchanging funny stories. I liked the kind of easy character development that was. Just kind of It was kind of like being a fly on the wall, just observing someone's life. Now that is how you establish characters. We learn their personalities through conversation. We learn who is the newbie, who are the seasoned veterans, and what their relationship is with each other. We also learn who is quiet and reserved and who is boisterous and rash. We get to know all their personalities just through the act of watching them converse with each other. We see them doing their patrol, singing along to the radio, in the police transport. I wouldn't call it a jump scare. I would just say something that surprising happens. I didn't see it coming at all. It made me jump. It was very effective to me. They have to respond to a call for backup and they find themselves in an extreme situation. And that's about all I want to tell you about the plot. When I heard about this movie, I heard it described as Silent Hill meets Hellraiser. I can see where the comparisons come from because one of the environments has a bunch of chains and torture devices, which would make you kind of think of Hellraiser. The dreamlike execution and some of the creature characters do remind you of Silent Hill. This movie starts off very well paced at the beginning, but slows all the way down during the middle. The bald actor they have playing a certain character just couldn't carry these scenes that he was in, and these scenes felt like they were going on forever because of the fact that he just couldn't carry them. He actually kind of looked like a failed Vin Diesel clone, or like if Vin Diesel was a character on The Simpsons, that's what he would look like. I actually think he was chosen because he looked odd, not because he was a great actor. All the other actors who played the police officers were great though. The soundtrack was really good. I really enjoyed the ending a lot. This is definitely worth a watch.